It's that time of year again, which means the only thing we're allowed to cook is turkey. Think again, because it's no secret that beef is better, and today we're cooking the biggest and baddest of them all, prime rib. Today I'll be showing you a foolproof method to make the perfect prime rib every time. But as you guys know, we like to experiment around here, so today I'm also gonna attempt to make the craziest Franken steak prime rib I possibly can to see how they compare. And with that, let's get started. Let's start by talking about the meat. So believe it or not, this right here is actually not a prime rib. This is a rib roast, and it only becomes a prime rib once it's cooked. So how do you select a prime rib? The first thing we want to look for is great marbling. This is just a choice grade rib roast, so really nothing special, but in here we have some fantastic marbling. The next thing we want to look for is a large cap muscle, and this is the most flavorful cut on the entire cap. In general, rib roasts that are taken closer to the front or the shoulder of the animal are going to have the bigger caps. And the last thing to think about is whether we want it bone in or boneless. Nothing beats a good rib. However, when cooking a prime rib, I actually don't think they're necessary. For one, the bone does not impart any flavor into the meat. That is a myth that has been completely debunked. Number two, as you can see here, the bones offer thermal protection to the meat from the bottom. What that means is that all the meat closest to the bone is gonna cook a lot slower. So while that's not a huge deal, leaving the bone in does tend to make it cook a little less evenly. And the third most important point is that the bones prevent us from seasoning the bottom of the meat. It prevents smoke from hitting it, it prevents bark from forming, and that to me is a big problem. That is not to say you shouldn't buy a bone-in roast, because there is some amazing things we can do with those bones, and I'm gonna show you how to do it. Wingardium Leviosa. So the first thing we're gonna do is remove this roast right from the bones. Just following our knife here, getting it as close as possible. And what we're left with here are some beautiful beef back ribs. These are the same as baby backs on a pig. We're gonna save them for something super special later on. All right, and it is time to start making our prime ribs. Now, before things get crazy and we make our ridiculous Franken steak, let's start by going over how to make the perfect prime rib every time. It is time to trim the rib roast. Now, the most important thing to do is remove the silver skin over the top. Every rib roast you find is gonna have this thick flap of silver skin. This stuff never renders and is extremely chewy, and also prevents us from developing incredible bark. You can really just use your hands to start peeling it away, and it should come right off. And once it's mostly off, I like to completely take off this knob of fat as well. It's pretty difficult to get that part to render, and once again, it makes it hard to develop crust on the entire surface of the meat itself. Now, it's totally okay to leave a good amount of fat here, as long as that first layer of silver skin's removed. And next up, let's talk about the seasoning. And with a roast this big, what we're looking for is maximum texture and maximum flavor. Optional oil binder, just to help the seasoning stick. And we're gonna go with a nice heavy coat. This is a massive piece of meat, and it can take quite a bit of seasoning, making sure to get the top and all the sides. Next, for an underrated, but in my opinion, super important step, we're gonna gently tie up the rib roast. With a more circular shape, this is not only gonna allow it to cook more evenly, but it's also gonna prevent the cap from pulling backwards, which tends to happen during the searing step. Next, we'll season up those back ribs that we removed. Now, the beauty of removing the ribs prior to cooking is that we can cook them to their optimal internal temp, and just like the rib roast, get that bark on all sides. By the end of it, we'll have a beautiful medium rare prime rib and some pretty epic barbecue ribs on the side. Okay, and with our meat all seasoned up, it is time to let it dry brine. All that means is we need to put it in the fridge uncovered for at least an hour, but ideally overnight. In the meantime, we're gonna work on our compound butter. All we'll need are 2 sticks of butter. You wanna make sure they're slightly softened, 1 to 2 tablespoons of garlic, a few sprigs of thyme, a few sprigs of rosemary, and lastly, roughly the same amount of shallots. And just for a little extra color and flavor, I'm adding a bit of barbecue rub, and give it a good mix. It's as simple as it gets. And now it's time to have some fun. Going in with the hands and adding on that compound butter all over every side. When the roast looks like this, even before going in the smoker, you already know it's gonna come out amazing. We'll add back the ribs and let's get it on the grill. Now, cooking this prime rib can easily be done in either a smoker or an oven, but the absolute key is to cook it at a low temperature, 250 degrees Fahrenheit. This is gonna lead to even cooking, and it's critical in reducing any gray band. And just like that, prime rib number 1 is on the grill, but now it's time to have a little bit of fun. We're making a Franken steak. Once again, starting with the exact same bone-in roast. And I'll once again trim up that top layer of silver skin. So before things start to get too crazy with this roast, we'll start by just seasoning it, just making sure to get all sides. And we are all seasoned up. The next step, we are going to do something I have never done before. We are going to inject our prime rib. So I know you guys all know the feeling when you just have, a 45 to 60 day brisket sitting in your dry ager. You have no idea what to do with it. You finally realize this is the perfect opportunity. We are gonna use this guy right here for its fat. But I don't know if it's just me, but this thing kind of looks like an alligator or like crocodile's head. Because our rib roast is not dry aged, my thought is that we'll render this dry aged fat that has all those nice flavors and inject it right in there. And I'll start by just removing this thick hunk of fat. And just smelling it, I can already tell it has that really nice, rich, almost like nutty type smell and flavor to it. This is gonna be perfect. My goal here is to just remove as much fat as possible from this brisket. Let me know in the comments if you have any ideas for how I should cook this thing. It's looking pretty crazy. And just because we've already taken things far with this brisket, I'm actually gonna try removing the point from the flat just to access more of that fat and kind of see what it looks like. This is more for my own interest over anything at this point. Well guys, we got the point and the flat. It's just looking ridiculous at this point, but we have uncovered quite a bit more fat, which is gonna be great for rendering. And into a pot with the fat, we'll add in a little bit of water just to help get the party started and let it render down. Gorgeous girls love dry-aged beef fat. Oh.
So gross.
And really all I'm thinking, what am I thinking?
Inception.
Just suck on it. Welcome to my nightmare. And it has been just about 30 minutes. As you can see, we've rendered out so much of that incredible dry-aged beef fat. We're gonna finish off the last 5 or so minutes by flavoring it. Some rosemary, some thyme, and garlic. As those herbs and garlic start to fry up, the smell is already unbelievable. And after letting it cool down, the only thing left to do is strain it out until we're left with that incredible golden goodness. You guys know I sort of hate this word, but I'm gonna say it. That liquid gold. And now it's time to channel our inner plastic surgeon and get that syringe loaded up. Now remember guys, do not try this at home. I'm a trained semi-professional. It's just blowing up like a balloon. Literally taking it like a champ. And of course, gotta try getting some right in the cap. No idea if this will work.
Oh my god, it's so chubby. She's ready to blow.
Wow. Well, we've literally blown this thing up like a balloon. It's like weirdly firm and just bubbly at this point. But if you thought we're done with the craziness, not quite yet. It is time for MSG. So I've cooked a bunch of stuff covered in salt. Never MSG, so now's the time.
Are you going poop or are you opening spices?
I swear it's impossible to open this. Kyle, I need help. Thank you. So what exactly is MSG? It stands for monosodium glutamate. That is a mouthful. Fortunately, these things are very easy to open. But as you can see, it is kind of similar to salt, but it gives food an incredible umami flavor. Now, it used to get a bad rap as sort of like an unhealthy ingredient, but really in moderation, it's totally fine to eat, and honestly is game changer from a flavor perspective. Let's see what we got here. It literally completely coats your mouth with umami, which is a very difficult flavor to describe. Almost similar to salt without the punch. That right there is pretty good stuff. I have very high hopes combining this with that rib roast. It actually tastes dank. So we're gonna be doing a very similar process as to when we cook stuff inside of salt, and we'll start by dumping all this MSG in a giant bowl. So what we need to do is almost make like a paste or like cement type mix to completely cover the prime rib in a shell. To do that, we're gonna need to add some moisture, and what I'm gonna use is a combination of egg whites and water. Separating that egg white, and this I'll keep as a little snack.
Oh, that was delicious.
And just add in some of that water and give it a mix. Slowly adding a bit more water until you reach a really nice paste-like consistency.
It's so cute.
That should hold together well enough to make a little snowman just like this guy. But every snowman must eventually meet his end. And we'll start by laying down an initial layer. And we'll add on the roast right in the middle and completely cover it up. Well guys, I gotta say this prime rib has been through quite a lot in its short life. It's been trimmed, it's been seasoned, it's been injected, and now it has been completely covered in a whole bunch of MSG. Will this come out good or be a complete disaster? I have no idea, but either way, let's get it on the grill. I do have a quick announcement from my jerky company, Max Jerky. So right now we're getting close to the holidays. Jerky is by far the greatest stocking stuffer. So if you're interested in hooking up your family and friends, this right here is a phenomenal option. Also, if you do enjoy our videos, this right here is the best way to support us. Really appreciate it. And let's get back to the video. And back outside, it has been exactly 3.5 hours. Roast number 1 has hit exactly 123 degrees Fahrenheit. For a medium rare prime rib, absolutely perfect. However, while our prime rib is resting, I'm actually gonna throw these bones back on the grill just to continue cooking. Now, the first thing I'll do here is strain out those buttery drippings. This is stuff you do not wanna waste. I really hate to use this term twice in the same video, but this right here is liquid gold. And we wanna let it rest for at least 30 minutes and at most an hour. But the next big question, should we sear this or not? In the oven, it tends to be a bit more pale, so I would definitely recommend searing it in that case. However, on the smoker, this to me already looks perfect. And let's go for a slice. And at this point, I think I'll just shut up for a second and let you guys enjoy. If I'm being honest with you guys, this to me is what life's all about. This right here. This is it. That's it. We're done. Bye. That's it. Take care. Psych! Depending on who you're feeding and how hungry you are, you can of course cut it on the thin side, or you can slice nice big chunks. Now let's check on those ribs. Because we removed them from the prime rib, we have beautiful and flavorful bark development on all sides. And we'll slice them up. And these things look absolutely amazing, just super juicy. And I have got to go for a bite here. Tibby. It's just his timing is impeccable. I have got to try this. Looks amazing.
No. You gotta wait for the taste test.
All right, let's check on the other one. And here she is. This thing is looking absolutely wild. It's really darkened up quite a bit, but I have to say the most noticeable thing, this just smells amazing. And without further ado, I think it's time we crack this baby open. Oh, damn boy. This thing is literally like the shell of a turtle or something. It's also kind of like a hat.
Very comfortable.
Time to uncover our buried treasure. As expected, zero bark at this stage, but it is looking pretty crazy. Now in this case, we absolutely have to sear it. As you can tell, it is extremely pale. There's a couple ways we could do it, but today I'm trying to keep it simple. We're going with the flamethrower. We're going with the flamethrower. Now that right there is a little bit more like it. It is finally time to slice into our Franken steak. I feel like I need a napkin or something. Juicy in here. But either way, now that I've officially squeezed all the juice out of this meat, time for the taste test. Need a napkin? What does that even mean? Oh God. Well guys, the time is here. I don't know what it is about Friday nights and 1:30 a.m., but here we are again, people. I'm gonna start off here with the traditional. This right here is a piece that I've had probably 100 times and hopefully we'll have at least 100 more times. If you have access to a smoker, please always cook your prime rib in the smoker. There's something about that kiss of smoke that's so game-changing. The seasoning, the cook, and the sauce just comes together perfectly. But let's move on over to our Franken steak. Injected with dry-aged beef fat, covered in a pretty excessive amount of MSG. Dang, that is different. Combination of those seasonings with the MSG, talk about an explosion of flavor. I think we did something here, people. Now, I will say I don't taste the dry aged flavor. Injecting it with beef fat certainly makes it more juicy and more flavorful on the inside. I actually think I'm gonna have to go with the OG as my favorite. There's just something so classic about it, it really is just hard to beat. Should you cover it in MSG?
Realistically not.
However, do I think you should try combining MSG with an incredible rub? I think it's probably worth trying because The flavor on that is remarkable. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to drop a comment. Let me know what you thought about it. Also throw a like on there, and I'll see you next time.